Today I am planting a bulb lasagna, which is exactly as it sounds. It is a multi-layered approach to planting bulbs in a pot, although I will say I'm going to attempt to do this outside too, and I'll show you that video later. But today we're going to plant them in a pot. And the goal of a bulb lasagna is to have multiple months of blooms coming out of one pot, so that as one variety of flower is done flowering, another starts to shoot up, and then you're left with just a beautiful pot of blooms. And then when those blooms are finished, you just clean the pot out and put new flowers in for the early summer season. So today I wanted to show you a pot that I am creating that will give me interest from early February until late April, early May. And it has some of my favorite varieties. And again, they're varieties that often have struggled to have success with when I planted them in the ground because squirrels have gotten to them. So what I am first going to show you is how to prep a pot. Now, depending on how many bulbs you want or how large of a bulb lasagna you want, of course, is going to determine what kind of pot you use. I'm going to go really large with this one, and I'll show you why in a second, but you don't have to use this size. For today's sake though, I do want to show you how to go big and bold, and then later I will give you some recipes for smaller pots as well. So this is a 17-inch wide pot and about 20 inches tall, and it's pretty heavy. So that being said, bulb lasagnas do need good drainage, and a lot of times you're going to see people tell you to put some rocks in the bottom to help with drainage, which is a great tip for smaller pots. If I were to put rocks in this, I would be adding another 10 pounds to something that's already about 25, and if I don't have wheels to roll it, then I could be really hindering my ability to move it to where I want it to be. So I want to show you a tip for making sure you don't make the pot too heavy, and that is using little pots that have drainage holes in them and putting them upside down in the bottom. These are sturdy pots because these were purchased at a nursery, so you do want to make sure they're not easily collapsible. But all I'm going to do is take these little pots and put them upside down in this pot, and there's 3 that fit. And now that adds me a layer of drainage so that my pots will hopefully, my bulbs will hopefully be happy. So the next thing I'm going to do is put in a good potting soil mix. I love the Black Cow label, and this one is made especially for potting, so that means it's pretty fluffy. And I'm going to put in just enough to cover those little pots up. Hope you can see that. Okay. And then I'm going to just level it out. Now, another thing that I love to use in bulb pots is horticultural grit, which is actually just chicken grit that is fed to chickens, but I call it horticultural because I'm using it for horticultural purposes, and for sure you can find it in garden centers, but pro tip, it's actually cheaper just to buy the chicken feed because it's the same thing. It's just ground up rocks like this. This will also help with the drainage, so I'm just going to sprinkle in a little bit and just fluff it around just a bit, maybe a handful and a half. And then I'm going to put in a little more soil. And now my lasagna can begin. So the first bulb that I'm going to put in is the largest, which is typically the rule of thumb you follow when you plant a bulb lasagna, though there is an exception when it comes to tulips that I'll share in a bit. So Fritillaria Persica is the first one I'm going to start with because it is so massive. This is a beautiful, tall, spiky plant that should bloom in April for me here in Virginia. It is a showstopper because, here's a picture, much like foxglove or delphinium, it has all these bell-shaped flowers that just sway and gracefully dance when they're in bloom. Unfortunately, squirrels absolutely, and groundhogs too, absolutely love these bulbs, and they get stolen all winter long. And though the flower isn't normally eaten because it's a strongly onion-scented, onion garlicky scent, the bulbs are a delicacy. So planting them in a pot is a great way to make sure that they don't get stolen. And so I'm just going to start by putting these first in the bottom layer. And in the 17-inch pot, I think I can fit about 5. Putting them just a little bit apart, but not too much. Okay, like so. And now I'm going to cover it up with some more soil. And a little more grit By the way, I could have mixed this up beforehand, but I wanted to show you the bag of soil I was using. So if you want to skip a step, go ahead and put the grit into the bag of soil before you do the planting. But we've got now another layer of soil. So the next bulb that I'm going to put in are tulips. Now this is where we break the rule a bit, because I'm also going to be adding in hyacinths. And as you can see, hyacinths are a little bit bigger than tulips, but tulips are taller, bloom later than the hyacinths, and also in general they need to be a little bit deeper. So I'm going to break the rule of thumb about the size of the bulb depending on, or determining where they go in the layer, and I'm just going to go ahead and put the tulips in first. This is Darwin Tulip Blushing Impression, and I feel like I'm going to put these pretty close together, about 1 inch apart, and I think I probably can get about 12 or 13. We'll see. Count them at the end. I'm just dotting them in, and you don't have to stress about if they're on top of the bulb underneath or not. They find their way. Bulbs are amazing in that way. They know how to maneuver to come up to the surface, so you don't need to worry about that so much. Okay, so it looks like I have about 12. Now that's my tulip layer. So now we're going to repeat. I'm going to put in more soil. And next are the hyacinths. Hyacinths are one of the most sweetly scented flowers that I will say have done super well for me outdoors. This isn't necessary for me for pots. Tulips also, by the way, get eaten all the time by rodents and deer, so another thing that's much safer in a pot. But here we have hyacinths. I have this Gypsy Princess variety that's a slight yellow or light yellow, and now I'm going to put these in. And I just kind of do a little jiggle to make sure they're sitting up, because you do want pointed side up with bulbs. That's always a rule for them. All right, and now we're gonna do another thing of soil. A little bit. And last but not least are the tiniest bulbs, and the ones that will bloom first, the ones that will get your hopes up for spring in late February, maybe even mid-February. And that is Iris Reticulata and Snowdrops. So I'm going to do both because I like the color scheme of white with the purples and yellows, and also I just feel like the Snowdrops are actually going to bloom maybe a little bit before the Iris, so it should be maybe even a double layer there of interest to extend the beauty of it. So as you can see, they are super, super tiny. This is the Snowdrop bulbs, and still pointy side up, but you're going to be able to get a lot into a 17-inch pot. And so I'm just going to dot around. I think also the thing with bulbs is there really isn't, there's no perfection needed in how you plant them. Just eyeballing spacing, they're pretty forgiving on that. And once they're all showing up, they're going to look great no matter what. So I'm going to put in the Snowdrops first. And then I'm going to come back in with the Iris Reticulata, which I have a picture of too. Those are the miniature iris. So the heirloom irises that you often see that have more of a tuber shape and that have to be above ground, and the rhizomes, I should say, not tuber, those are not the same. So these are a bulb variety of an iris. They're really little and miniature. You often will see them in stores in the winter and little pots for sale. So now you get to have your own. And then we're just going to dot those in amongst the Snowdrops. And I haven't counted, but you can see there's a bunch. It's going to be beautiful. And I think that's about enough here. As I say that, I keep finding more spots. Okay. All right. And then the final layer of soil goes in. They're on. And a little bit more grit. And that's it. There's your lasagna. Now I will water this in well today, and then I'm just gonna put it in a sunny spot where it can get morning dew and hopefully some rain throughout the season, or snow even. And that's all I'm gonna do to it. If you have it on a porch, I've been in that predicament too, where maybe I don't have it completely in, you know, out in the open. But if you put it along the edge, typically I've had great success. It's still gonna get some moisture coming in. So that's it. Hopefully this is inspiring you to create your own bulb lasagna and have something to look forward to in the spring that will give you months of interest.